What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is LazyDaze Tubby and I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today, and it is some more Sabaton History's content for you, and it is their video Long Live the King, the Swedish King Karl the 7th. I'm really looking forward to finding out what they've got in store for us today. They make some amazing content and tell some great stories, lines in general, and the friendship between Indy Idol and the band is always great to see, and the little bits of banter they have between them. So if you haven't already, please head over to their page and also check out their music. They make amazing content. Links are going to be in the description box down below. If you guys are looking forward to my reaction and future reactions, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we're going to jump straight into this one.
I'm Indy Idol.
And I'm Joakim from Sabaton.
This is Sabaton History. Karl den Tolfte, known popularly as Carolus Rex, was killed by a stray bullet in battle, like pretty much anyone else in war at that time. Who fired that bullet? Well, there's a lot of speculation about that.
And our song, Long Live the King, is about that day and his funeral march home.
Okay. Interesting. I think you guys said that there's a song called Carolus Rex as well. I was going to say that for me and Jack's reaction. Interesting. So yeah, that'd be the reason why I haven't reacted to it before you guys jump on it, is because me and Jack are going to go do it on our main channel when he's back from holiday.
The military disaster for Sweden that was the Battle of Poltava on June 28, 1709 was a crippling wound that put the whole future of Sweden in jeopardy. The Swedish king, Karl XII, had barely escaped being captured by the victorious Russians and was now having his wounds tended as a guest of the Ottoman Empire at the city of Bender in what is now Moldova. Although he was safe among the Ottomans, Russia's great enemy, he was now also over 700 miles away from his realm, halfway across Europe. That in itself was maybe more damaging to the Swedish Empire than any Poltava could have been. With the absence of their ruler, the Swedish parliament in Stockholm, the Riksdag, was in a precarious situation. The destruction of the Swedish army at Poltava had encouraged the old enemies of Sweden to renew hostilities. Not only the Russians, but Saxony and Denmark as well set their sights on the now struggling Swedish Baltic Empire. The Riksdag did its best to negotiate some sort of peace with its enemies to buy time for the king's return. Karl, however, forbade any further peace negotiations. He believed that he had once brought the empire glory and prestige, and he would do so once again in the future.
But obviously he's not there to put that in place.
He also
at the
was
moment.
taking his own sweet time about returning to Sweden. Without a peace deal, Riga and Dunemunda were soon lost, as were Reval and other Swedish possessions and fortresses in the Baltic states. In November 1709, an army of 16,000 Danes crossed Öresund to attack Sweden itself. Sweden fortunately had on its side the highly capable Governor-General of Skåne, Magnus Stenbock, who not only put together an army of mostly young recruits for the defense of the Swedish homeland, but also used that army to counterattack and drive the Danes out of Sweden. But this could not go on forever. Many felt that Sweden needed a strong statesman, a level-headed sovereign, who could assess the nation's real strength.
Some of these drawings of these people are jokes.
And the limits of its power. But it was still an absolute monarchy by constitution. And whatever the Riksdag decided, their decisions could still be overruled weeks or months later as King Karl's orders finally arrived from his self-proclaimed exile. The situation was indeed dire. Sweden was bleeding dry. Its economy, which was mostly agrarian, was in shambles. The people were starving, carrying the burden of a besieged empire on their overtaxed backs. Famine and bankruptcy crippled the realm. Soldiers could not be raised because there was no equipment for them. Ships could not be repaired. Cannons could not be cast. There were mortgages on towns and estates. And
it's just every single possible problem you have. Literally every single thing you can think of, this is what he's got to deal with.
Even the church bells had to be sold just to keep the Swedish state and its defenses alive. Stenbock's victory brought them breathing room, though, and there was even a chance of a neutrality pact. backed by the Holy Roman Emperor, who wanted to prevent the war from spreading into his realms.
Okay.
The Riksdag supported the idea, but Karl would hear nothing of it. In fact, he hated the idea of a neutrality pact, thinking that this would ultimately tie his hands and keep him from reconquering the lands that were rightfully his. Sweden's future, he believed, was destined for greatness, and Karl would not be the king under whose rule the Baltic Empire fell. Putting his trust in God and the righteousness of his cause, the king tore the neutrality pact apart and made it perfectly clear to the Riksdag that the authority of the empire and its armies lay with him and him alone.
Was it a mistake? Was it not? You understand that you want your country, you think your country's destined for greatness, but sometimes you've got to sit with an L to win later, right? Surely.
He still aimed to save everything, to renew the offensive against Russia and Sweden's other enemies. There would be peace eventually, but a peace honorable for Sweden. Even the hardcore
These history videos always make the lyrics hit so much harder.
loyalists in the Riksdag wrote heartfelt letters to their sovereign explaining the impossibility of his demands and that the age of conquering and triumphs was over. Sweden had to come to terms with her enemies, even if it meant giving up territory, or there may well come a day when there was no realm for the king to come home to any.
I wouldn't say give up territory. That's a bit too far.
Stenbock even went to Bender himself to plead with the king in person, but it was useless. Historians agree that up until 1712, Sweden still had a few chances left to save parts of the realm through clever diplomacy. There was an offer by the Prussian King Frederick I for Karl to lead a combined army from Prussia, Sweden, and Saxony against the Russians. But even that offer was refused by Karl, not wanting to be a puppet for others. The Swedish king was deeply disillusioned by decades of broken promises and betrayals by the other great powers. Instead, he clung to a belief in his
I don't understand why you have
personal
paranoia.
destiny and a God-given mission that was his from birth. However, in an age of ruthless Staatsräson, putting the security of the state, whatever the form of government, first, by any means necessary, that was a tragedy in itself. In 1713, Magnus Stenbock and 11,000 men were forced to capitulate to an overwhelming force of a Russian, Danish, Saxon coalition. Sweden had now lost all influence in the courts of Europe. A fatalistic mood swept over the Riksdag as the continental positions were basically lost. And at this point, even they were pretty much ready to revolt against Karl and the absolutist constitution if it meant saving Sweden from disaster. Liberal statesmen like Arvid Horn stepped in, pleading for a parliamentary future instead of facing the dangers of a revolution. But this liberal future could only begin after Karl was no more. In the face of this possible revolt, Karl finally
Hence why the lyrics said, who killed him, friend or foe?
came home to Sweden. Despite the burdens he had put on his people, the common folk still praised their beloved king in the hope that now everything would finally turn out for the better.
Interesting.
However, the king had no intentions of remaining in Sweden. Instead, he immediately ordered an army of 20,000 men raised, prepared to continue to make war. Talks of peace or neutrality must cease at once. He would take the fight to the enemy, which was by now a coalition of Denmark, Russia, Prussia, Poland, Saxony, and Hanover, because why not Hanover too? With his typical confidence, unshakable belief in God,
to deal with,
a little
bro.
money from the French, Karl set out to save Sweden by a demonstration of power, but one that it could hardly afford. Great triumphs were not easily to be found, and instead there were just more years of fruitless campaigning. In late 1718, Karl and his troops marched towards Danish strongholds in southern Norway. It was already past October, and his troops suffered from the harsh weather and the hardships of the journey.
Oh, I'm trying to be understandable and trying to see it from this guy's point of view. But you're being a melt and you're being a moron. Like sort out your house first. Get your house in order first. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Why are you going in the winter? Why you only got 20,000 men? Like, you might need to wait a bit more. How trained are they? Oh.
Hundreds were dying of disease as the siege of the fortress at Friedrichshald began. The king himself did not shy away from danger, though, and shared the burden of his troops. He slept in the field with them, kept watch in the trenches, and even led his troops into the breach of the outer walls.
So you get points there for being with your men, but at the same time, you're still making a bunch of mistakes.
By November 30th, the Swedish trenches had been dug up to the final bastion of the fortress. Just a musket shot away, the king and his officers inspected the battlefield by night. The Danish defenders constantly lit up the night, trying to pick off sappers. Again and again, Karl was seen climbing the trenches to look over the edge for any sign of activity inside the bastion, to the dismay of his concerned officers. Musket balls and cannonballs have little respect for a king, one of them said, as the king once more put his head over the top. Suddenly, a thud was heard as if a stone were hitting the earth. The king's head sunk down on his chest. "Lord Jesus, the king is shot," the officers cried out from the trenches. A piece of metal had pierced Karl's left temple, punching through his head and coming out the other side. The king was dead in an instant at 36 years of age, and his reign of 21 years came to an end. And with the king's death, so too did the constant wars finally come to an end. The king's body was brought...
Once again, once you get rid of the person that's sort of brought you all together for this reason, what do you have left to stay?
Back to Sweden, to a nation that had suffered dearly under the costs of war. With his death, the dreams of the great Swedish Empire vanished. Peace finally returned to the Swedish people. Who or what exactly had killed the king that day is still a mystery. Some suspected a canister shot from the fortress walls. Others presumed a musket shot. Some said he was shot on purpose by one of his own by mistake or treachery. There was an investigation, and several liberal politicians were even tried and executed, but hard evidence for an assassination has never been discovered. But to this day.
But wait, what? No. Imagine being trialed and executed, but it not being proven that it was done and it was committed. That's outrageous. That's outrageous if I heard that right.
And several liberal politicians were even tried and executed, but hard evidence for an assassination has never been discovered.
Oh, that's so peak. That's so peak. I'll be fuming.
To this day, over 300 years later, the mystery remains. The mummified body of Karl XII has been exhumed and analyzed 3 times since his death, the third in 1917. But there is no answer to the question of who or what killed the king.
You just wouldn't know.
Okay, now this is going back a lot further than most Sabaton songs, right?
Yes, we're talking about the Swedish Empire in those days.
Okay.
And this song is quite different in that sense that it was actually the one that inspired us to do the album in Sweden.
Ooh, interesting.
So this was the first one that you...
Yeah, I mean, when starting to write the music, I remember it so clearly. I had this idea of this painting, the Funeral March, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, I know the painting. No, funny thing, when I first moved to Sweden,
that is a really nice painting.
You could take Swedish classes through the government. Like the first or second day of it, they started telling us a little Swedish history. We learned about this painting literally the first or second day there in school. So that's what inspired you for this song.
Yes, I had that picture in mind, or in my mind when I was writing the main riff, and that sort of became the main chorus of the song. And for some, natural reasons, the words that came out of my head were Swedish. So I sang the chorus in Swedish on the pre-production, and then we listened to it, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's awesome! Let's do the whole album in Swedish." And that seemed like a great idea.
It was a great idea.
Yeah,
interesting.
You realize you have to write the lyrics twice, and you have to record with all the choirs and everything in time planned for only doing it in one language.
Right.
Okay.
So not quite as big then as you are now.
No, and let's just say there was tumultuous times regarding everything from the recording to we switched band members, quite a few at that time as well. So I don't remember that recording very fondly, and that's usually a good sign.
But it turned out to be great because it is cool that you did the whole album you did in both languages. As it turned out. Now, question though, when, as you said, this was the first song, you were inspired by the painting and write this. Was it already planned to do a whole album about Swedish history, or was it just
No, we actually had the plan. Let's do something about the Swedish Empire in those 100 years. And
interesting.
I just had to start somewhere, and that painting came into my mind, and that's the way it went, I guess.
Yeah, did you learn a lot of this in school when you were a kid? I mean, did they teach a lot of Swedish history to young Swedes, or did they when you were younger?
Obviously, this is a big part of the Swedish, education system of in history. Every nation has its own history. That's one of the things I love about.
That's so true. And every country teaches their education, their history differently.
About traveling and touring, because things that are so obvious to all Swedes are unheard of in, let's say, Brazil, and vice versa.
Yeah, because even the things you do, like smoking snakes.
Even in closer countries like European countries, I think most Europeans wouldn't know too much history about another European countries in general. So you wouldn't find much about France and much about a bit further away. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, just in general. You get what I'm saying.
Dying Breath, Panzer Camp. I mean, these all mean a lot different.
Oh yeah, and it's sometimes thanks to some of you guys, fans, who have been giving us books and sending us emails. A good, I'd say, probably 30, 40, 50% of some albums, especially Coat of Arms and Heroes, were inspired by you guys. So.
Interesting.
That's really cool. So keep sending them in. All right, well, that is it for Long Live the King, but we will see you next time on Sabaton History.
Well, I really enjoyed that episode of Sabaton History and the little interview afterwards. Like I said, it's nice to see the little chemistry between Indie Idol and the band members themselves, and I'm really happy that they started this channel. So if you haven't already, please head over to both their music channel and the Sabaton History channel. Like I said, links in the description box down below. If you guys enjoy my reaction, looking forward to all future reactions, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.